The wind howled across the barren Alaskan landscape as Dr. Alan Morris pulled his thick coat tighter around his body. For 3 weeks now, his team had been digging in this remote location, following unusual readings that his equipment had detected during a routine survey. Alan wasn't sure what they would find, but something about this site made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Dr. Morris, you need to see this." Melissa Ward's voice carried over the wind. The young graduate student was waving frantically from the edge of the main dig site. Alan trudged through the snow, his boots crunching with each step. The temperature had dropped again, and his breath formed thick clouds in front of his face. As he approached the excavation pit, he saw several team members gathered around something, their faces a mixture of confusion and wonder. "What is it?" Alan asked as he carefully made his way down the slippery slope. Paul Bennett, his senior researcher, looked up with wide eyes. "We're not entirely sure, but it's definitely not natural." The team had uncovered a small section of something metallic, its surface gleaming despite being buried for what must have been centuries, maybe longer. The metal had an unusual bluish-silver sheen that Alan had never seen before, and patterns that looked like writing or symbols ran along the visible edge. "Has anyone touched it?" Alan asked, pulling out his camera to document the discovery. "No, sir," Melissa replied. "We followed protocol and stopped digging as soon as we hit it." Alan nodded in approval. "Good. Let's set up proper lighting and get some initial readings. Paul, can you collect samples from the surrounding soil? We need to establish a timeline." The team worked methodically as the short winter day quickly faded into darkness. Floodlights illuminated the site, casting long shadows across the snow. By nightfall, they had exposed more of the strange metal object, revealing what appeared to be part of a curved structure. Back in their heated research tent, Alan studied the preliminary results with growing excitement. "This doesn't make any sense," he said, pointing to the screen of his laptop. "The carbon dating of the organic material around the object suggests it's been buried for approximately 30,000 years, but the metal shows no sign of corrosion or degradation." "Could our dating be wrong?" Melissa asked, peering over his shoulder. Alan shook his head. "We ran it twice, and look at this scan." He pulled up another image. The object continues deep, underground. It's much larger than what we've uncovered. "What do you think it is?" Paul asked, rubbing his tired eyes. "I don't know," Alan admitted. "But whatever it is, it's not something made by ancient humans. The metallurgical composition doesn't match anything in our database." 3 days later, the scope of their discovery had become clear. The object was enormous, extending at least 50 meters in all directions from their initial find. Government officials had arrived the day before, setting up their own equipment and restricting access to the site. "Dr. Morris," a woman in a black winter coat approached him as he was reviewing the latest ground-penetrating radar results. "I'm Dr. Olivia Russell from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. I'll be taking over operations from this point forward." Alan felt a surge of frustration. This is an archaeological discovery, not a military one. Dr. Russell gave him a tight smile. "It's both, I'm afraid. Your team will continue to work under my supervision. Your expertise is still valuable, but this is now a matter of national security." Before Alan could argue further, one of the military technicians called out from the main tent. "Dr. Russell, we're picking up energy readings from the object." Everyone rushed to the tent. On a large monitor, a technician pointed to a pulsing waveform. "It started about 5 minutes ago. Low level at first, but it's been steadily increasing." "Is it dangerous?" Melissa asked, concern evident in her voice. "We don't know," Dr. Russell replied, "but we're not taking any chances. I want everyone to pull back to the secondary camp until we can analyze these readings." As they prepared to move, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Alan froze, looking down at his feet. "Did you feel that?" Before anyone could answer, a low humming sound began to emanate from the dig site. It started quietly, but quickly grew in volume until it vibrated through Alan's chest. "Everyone out, now!" Dr. Russell ordered, and the team scrambled to gather essential equipment. Alan grabbed his notebook and laptop but couldn't resist one last look at the excavation. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. The exposed section of metal was glowing faintly, the strange symbols pulsing with an inner light. "Alan, come on," Paul shouted, grabbing his arm. They made it to the vehicles just as a beam of light shot up from the dig site, piercing the cloudy sky. The humming grew louder, and the ground shook more violently. From the relative safety of the secondary camp a mile away, they watched as more military personnel arrived, setting up a perimeter around the site. Helicopter spotlights illuminated the area, revealing that more of the object had somehow become exposed, as if the ground itself was falling away from it. "What's happening?" Melissa asked, her voice barely audible over the noise. "I think it's waking up," Alan replied, unable to tear his eyes away from the spectacle. Dr. Russell approached them, now surrounded by military officers. "Dr. Morris, our scans indicate this object is a spacecraft, of clearly non-human design." Alan felt his world shift. Despite all his years studying ancient civilizations, nothing had prepared him for this. "How is that possible? The dating puts it at 30,000 years old." "Which means," Dr. Russell said, "that Earth was visited long before recorded human history. And now, for some reason, this ship is activating." Over the next few days, the government established a full research facility around the site, codenamed Frost Point. Scientists from various disciplines were flown in, and a no-fly zone was established over the entire area. Alan and his team were kept on as consultants, their archaeological expertise proving valuable as more of the ship was carefully excavated. The energy signatures continued to fluctuate, sometimes spiking dramatically before falling to barely detectable levels. 6 months into the excavation, Alan was working late in the main lab when alarm sirens began blaring throughout the facility. He rushed outside to find people pointing at the sky. High above them, strange lights were moving in formation, descending slowly through the clouds. Dr. Russell appeared beside him, her face illuminated by the eerie glow from above. "Dr. Morris," she said quietly, "it seems the owners have come back for their ship." The lights in the sky grew larger as they descended toward the research facility. Alan stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Around him, military personnel rushed into position, scientists hurried to secure data, and security teams established a perimeter. The wind had died down, as if the Alaskan wilderness itself was holding its breath. "Everyone inside now," Dr. Russell ordered, her voice surprisingly calm. "Essential personnel only in the main control room." Alan felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Melissa, her face pale in the strange light from above. "Do you think they're hostile?" she whispered. Alan shook his head. "If they wanted to harm us, I doubt they'd announce their arrival like this." They followed Dr. Russell to the main control building, where screens displayed various angles of the approaching objects. There were 7 vessels in total, each with a sleek, elongated design that reminded Alan of ancient fish fossils. The ships moved with impossible grace, forming a perfect circle above the excavation site. A woman in a military uniform entered the room. "Captain Diane Garcia, United Earth." "Defense Forces," she announced. "I'll be taking point on first contact procedures." "United Earth Defense Forces?" Paul muttered beside Alan. "When did that happen?" "About 3 months ago," Captain Garcia replied, overhearing him. "After your discovery, several nations fast-tracked the formation of a unified response team. The largest screen suddenly flickered, showing a close-up of the lead vessel. Unlike the buried ship, these craft had a reddish-gold color that shimmered in the spotlights. One by one, they landed in a circle around the excavation site, their engines making almost no sound. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then a section of the largest ship began to lower, forming a ramp. Light spilled out from inside, and a figure appeared in the opening. "They're humanoid," Melissa whispered, leaning forward to get a better look at the screen. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, with a slender build. Its skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and it wore what appeared to be a fitted suit, of material that shifted colors as it moved. The most striking feature was its head, slightly larger than a human's, with large dark eyes that wrapped partially around the sides. Captain Garcia activated the communication system. "This is Captain Diane Garcia representing Earth. We welcome you in peace." There was no immediate response. The alien stepped fully out of the ship, followed by two others. They surveyed the area, their movements fluid and deliberate. Then, the first alien raised a hand toward the nearest camera. The screens in the control room flickered, and suddenly a voice filled the room. It spoke in a language no one recognized, flowing and musical, with clicks and tones that human vocal cords likely couldn't produce. "They're trying to communicate," Dr. Russell said. "Run it through the linguistics program." A technician worked quickly at a console. "It's not matching any known language pattern, but there's something." "Wait." The alien spoke again, but this time in a different language. It was still unintelligible, but had a different rhythm. "They're cycling through languages," Alan realized. "They're trying to find one we understand." The alien continued, each time speaking in a different tongue. After several attempts, it spoke again. And this time, Alan felt a shock of recognition. That sounds like Proto-Indo-European," he said. "Or at least a reconstruction of it." "You understand it?" Captain Garcia asked. "Not exactly," Alan admitted. "It's a theoretical reconstruction of one of Earth's oldest language families. No modern human speaks it fluently, but linguists have reconstructed parts of it." The alien spoke again, this time in what sounded like ancient Greek, then switched to an early form of Hebrew, then something that might have been Sanskrit. With each attempt, the languages became more recognizable, moving forward through human linguistic history. Finally, the alien spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "We return for property. Ship is ours. We are Zalrani." Captain Garcia stepped forward. "We understand. The ship was discovered buried beneath the ice. How long has it been here?" "Time measurement. Difficult," the alien replied. "In your counting, approximately 3/10 of your 1,000 years. 30,000 years," Dr. Russell breathed. "I am called Navigator," the alien continued. "We departed in emergency, left research vessel, intended return sooner. Unexpected, difficulties arose." Alan couldn't contain himself. "You were here during the Upper Paleolithic. You would have encountered early modern humans." The Navigator turned its large eyes toward the camera. "Yes. Primitive species then. Not capable of speech as now. Very surprising development. Unexpected. Evolution rate." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These aliens had visited Earth when humans were still living in caves using stone tools. Before agriculture, before writing, before civilization. "We need to establish proper diplomatic channels," Captain Garcia said. "Our world leaders will want to speak with you." "Acceptable," the Navigator replied. "First, require access to ship. Confirm status." Dr. Russell hesitated. "The ship has recently started emitting energy signatures. We don't know what triggered it." "Expected. Ship programmed to wake when detecting Zalrani approach." The Navigator made a gesture with its hand. "Important to access quickly. Ship contains sensitive materials." Captain Garcia studied the alien for a moment before responding. "We'll need assurances that there's no danger to our people first." The Navigator tilted its head. "Curious. You claim authority over our property. We left before your species developed complex tools. Now you make demands." Alan saw the tension, rising and stepped forward. "Perhaps I could show you what we've learned about the ship so far. We've been very careful with the excavation." The Navigator seemed to consider this. "You are scientist? Archaeologist?" "Yes," Alan replied. "My team and I study ancient human history." "Acceptable. You will show findings. Then we inspect ship." Over. The next few hours, the Zalrani were escorted to the research facility. Two more aliens joined the Navigator, introduced as archivist and engineer. They moved with an otherworldly grace, their tall forms dwarfing the humans around them. Alan presented their findings, showing the careful documentation of the excavation. The Zalrani studied the images and data with interest, occasionally commenting to each other in their own language. "Surprised humans reached this level?" the navigator said as they finished reviewing the information. When we left, your kind used only stone tools, had limited language. Now you understand advanced concepts. We've come a long way, Alan said with a smile. The navigator fixed him with its large eyes. Yes, very unusual speed of development makes us curious. Something in the way the alien said this sent a chill down Alan's spine. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Dr. Russell rushed to a computer terminal. The ship's energy output just spiked dramatically, she announced, her voice tense. It's broadcasting some kind of signal. The navigator and the other Zalrani exchanged quick glances. For the first time, they appeared concerned. Must access ship. Immediately, the navigator said urgently. Signal not supposed to activate could bring great danger. The control room erupted into action. Military personnel rushed to stations while scientists frantically analyzed the strange signal coming from the buried ship. The three Zalrani stood perfectly still amid the chaos, their large eyes blinking occasionally as they watched the humans. What kind of danger are we talking about? Captain Garcia demanded, stepping closer to the navigator. The tall alien turned to face her. Signal is distress call. Very powerful. Reaches far into space. A distress call? Dr. Russell frowned. Who is it calling to? The navigator exchanged glances with the other Zalrani before responding. Others? Ones we were observing when here before. Alan felt a growing unease. You weren't just exploring Earth 30,000 years ago, were you? The archivist, taller and thinner than the navigator, stepped forward. Correct. Primary mission was monitoring dangerous species, traveling through this sector. Your solar system was observation post. Before anyone could respond to this revelation, the doors to the control room burst open. A group of people in formal attire entered, led by a stern-looking man in his 60s. Frank Miller, United Nations Security Council, he announced, surveying the room quickly before focusing on the aliens. I've been authorized to handle diplomatic negotiations regarding the vessel. Captain Garcia looked surprised. Sir, we're in the middle of a potential security situation. The ship is broadcasting some kind of signal. All the more reason to establish clear terms, Miller replied, then turned to the Zalrani. While we appreciate your historical claim to the vessel, it was discovered on Earth soil. Under archaeological preservation laws, it may be considered part of humanity's heritage and scientific interest. The three aliens stared at Miller. The navigator's skin color shifted slightly, taking on a deeper blue tone. Your species did not exist as you are now when we left ship, the navigator said slowly. You claim our property because you evolved while we were gone. Miller straightened his tie. We're simply establishing that after 30,000 years there are complicated legal and scientific considerations. The engineer, who had remained silent until now, made a sound that might have been laughter. Legal, scientific, words you did not have when we departed. The point remains, Miller insisted. We need to establish protocols for studying and potentially sharing the technology before simply handing it over. The navigator's skin darkened further. Ship not safe for humans to study. Contains systems beyond your understanding. As signal, proves. As the diplomatic tension grew, Alan noticed a younger man who had entered with Miller's group. He was watching the aliens with intense fascination, occasionally making notes on a tablet. Who's that? Alan whispered to Melissa. Dr. Kevin Daniels, linguistic anthropologist, she replied. He's been studying ancient language patterns that might have alien influences. His theories weren't taken seriously until now. Dr. Daniels approached the aliens cautiously. Excuse me, he said, but I've been researching unusual language patterns in early human communications. There are symbols that don't match any known human development path. The archivist turned to him. Explain. Cave paintings, dated to approximately 30,000 years ago, contain symbols that appear in multiple locations separated by thousands of miles, Dr. Daniels explained, showing images on his tablet. The same symbols, the same patterns appearing simultaneously across the globe with no apparent connection. The navigator looked at the images, then made a series of clicking sounds to the other Zalrani. Yes, the navigator finally said. Teaching. Symbols. Basic concepts. Universal constants. The room fell silent. Alan felt his heart racing. You taught early humans? Limited interaction, the engineer said. Observation primary goal, but some showed potential. Dr. Russell crossed her arms. Are you saying you interfered with human development? Not interfered, the navigator corrected. Observed. Occasionally tested learning capacity. Before the conversation could continue, alarms blared again. A technician called out from a monitoring station. The signal's power is increasing. It's now broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Must access ship now, the navigator insisted, all diplomatic pretense gone. Signal not supposed to activate this way. Ancient security protocols malfunctioning. Miller looked uncertain. I need authorization before. The engineer stepped forward, suddenly imposing. No time for human politics. Signal attracts attention from far space. Attention you do not want. Captain Garcia made a quick decision. I'm authorizing access to the ship. My team will escort you. I'm going too, Alan said firmly. My team knows the excavation site better than anyone. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Daniels approached Alan. I should come as well. If there's writing or symbols inside, I might be able to help translate. They moved quickly through the facility toward the excavation site. Outside, the 7 Zalrani ships maintained their circle around the buried vessel, their surfaces now glowing with a pulsing light that matched the rhythm of the signal. The exposed part of the ancient ship had changed since the aliens' arrival. More of the metal surface was visible, as if the Earth itself was pulling away from it. The bluish-silver material now pulsed with light, and the symbols along its surface shifted and changed continuously. Opening protocol requires Zalrani biosignature, the navigator explained as they approached. Ship will recognize after all this time. As they neared the vessel, a section of the surface suddenly changed texture, becoming almost liquid-like. The navigator placed a 6-fingered hand against it, and the material rippled outward from the touch. A seam appeared, widening into an entrance. Wait, called a voice from behind them. Colonel Eric White, head of the military security team, jogged toward them with 4 armed soldiers. We need to secure the area first. No time, the navigator said sharply. Signal growing stronger. Must deactivate quickly. Colonel White stood his ground. We have protocols. Your protocol's meaningless here, the engineer interrupted. This technology beyond your understanding. Each moment increases danger. Captain Garcia stepped between them. Colonel, I've authorized this mission. You and your team can accompany us, but the Zalrani lead the way. After a moment of tension, Colonel White reluctantly nodded. They entered the ship in a single file. The navigator first, followed by the engineer and archivist, then Alan, Melissa, Dr. Daniels, Captain Garcia, and finally, Colonel White and his team. Inside, the ship was nothing like Alan had imagined. The walls curved organically with no sharp angles or straight lines. Soft light emanated from the material itself, responding to their presence by brightening along their path. The air felt strangely heavy, with a slight metallic taste. Ship in hibernation mode for too long, the engineer observed, touching a panel that came to life under its fingers. Systems degraded, self-repair activated incorrectly. What is this ship exactly? Alan asked, marveling at the alien technology. Research vessel, the navigator replied. Study local species, monitor solar system. Also, it hesitated. Protect observation post from detection. Protect from whom? Captain Garcia asked sharply. Before the navigator could answer, a deep rumbling vibrated through the ship. The lights flickered, and then a voice filled the space around them, not coming from any specific source but from everywhere at once. The voice spoke in the same musical language the Zalrani had first used, but with an odd distortion. The 3 aliens froze, their skin changing to a pale, almost white color. What is it saying? Alan whispered. The navigator turned slowly, its large eyes wider than before. Ship's artificial intelligence. Not supposed to be active. It says, it has been waiting, and now it has called them home. Who has it called home? Captain Garcia demanded, her hand moving instinctively to her weapon. Navigator, what aren't you telling us? The three Zalrani communicated rapidly in their own language, a series of clicks and musical tones that no human could understand. The ship around them pulsed with light that seemed to respond to their voices. Explain, the navigator finally said, turning to the humans. When we arrived on Earth long ago, we were not exploring. We were hiding. Hiding. From what? Alan asked. Others. Hunters. They destroy emerging intelligence across galaxy. The navigator's large eyes blinked slowly. Your ancestors showed first signs of advanced thinking. Hunters would have eliminated them. We established observation posts to study and protect. The ship's voice spoke again, the strange words echoing around them. This time, it was followed by a translation in halting, oddly accented English. Zalrani detected. Protocol active. Message sent to home. Hunters near. Colonel White stepped forward. You led hostile aliens to Earth? You put our entire planet at risk? No, the engineer insisted. Signal should not be active. Ship damaged in emergency departure. Systems corrupted over time. Dr. Daniels had been studying the symbols on the walls, which continued to shift and change. These patterns, they're similar to what I found in cave paintings from Western Europe to Eastern Asia, but more complex. The archivist approached. Him? Yes. Teaching language, universal concepts, gave to your ancestors hoping knowledge would survive if we could not return. Melissa touched one of the walls where the patterns were most concentrated. You were trying to help early humans? Some among us believed your species had potential, the navigator replied. Others thought you too primitive, too violent for advancement. We disagreed among ourselves. As they moved deeper into the ship, they entered a large circular chamber. In the center stood a column of swirling light, pulsing in rhythm with the signal. Around the edges of the room were what looked like sleeping chambers, each sized for a Zalrani body. Control center, the engineer explained, moving toward the light column. Must deactivate beacon. Colonel White positioned his soldiers around the room. No one touches anything until we understand exactly what's happening. The archivist turned to Alan. Your kind has not changed in 30,000 years. Still fear what you do not understand. Given that your ship is apparently calling hostile aliens to Earth, I'd say our caution is justified, Alan replied. The ship's voice spoke again, this time in a strange mixture of ancient human languages and Zalrani sounds. Dr. Daniels listened intently, his eyes widening. It's speaking a proto-language, he said excitedly. A mixture of early human speech patterns and Zalrani communication. How is that possible? Dr. Russell asked, having joined them in the control room with additional scientists. The navigator hesitated before answering. Ship's artificial intelligence learned from subjects. From humans we studied. Studied? Captain Garcia repeated, her voice sharp with suspicion. The engineer ignored the tension and moved to a panel near the light column. No time for history lesson. Must deactivate beacon before. A sudden tremor shook the ship, knocking several people off their feet. The light column flared brightly, and new symbols appeared on all the walls, pulsing in angry red. Too late, the navigator said quietly. Signal received. Acknowledged. Colonel White raised his weapon. What does that mean? It means, the archivist explained, that they know Earth harbors intelligent life now, and they are coming. Alan helped Melissa to her feet as the tremors subsided. How long do we have? Unknown, the engineer said, working frantically at the control panel. Days, perhaps weeks. Their technology advanced greatly since our last encounter. We need to get this information to world governments immediately, Captain Garcia said. If Earth is facing an alien threat, we need to prepare. As the humans discussed emergency protocols, Alan noticed something strange about one wall of the chamber. Unlike the others, its patterns weren't shifting. He approached it carefully, studying the fixed symbols. Dr. Daniels, he called. Can you look at this? The linguist joined him, examining the wall. These aren't just symbols. They're pictures. Star maps, maybe? The archivist appeared beside them. History wall. Record of our time here. The wall began to glow brighter where they stood, and images formed within the surface. They showed Zalrani interacting with early humans, teaching them to make tools to create fire to build shelters. Other images showed the aliens protecting human groups from predators and harsh weather. You didn't just observe, Alan said, understanding dawning. You actively helped early humans survive. Some of us did, the navigator admitted, joining them. Against protocol, debate caused division among our people. Some left, taking main fleet. Others stayed, continued work with humans. When hunters approached, emergency evacuation ordered. Too few of us to protect Earth. Planned to return when safer. But you didn't come back for 30,000 years, Melissa said. War spread across our systems, the archivist explained. Only now rebuilt enough to return for missing ship and crew. Crew? Dr. Russell asked. There were Zalrani left behind? The navigator touched the wall, and new images appeared. They showed Zalrani in the sleeping chambers they had seen around the room. Some volunteered to remain in stasis, guard ship, maintain systems. The navigator's voice held a note of sadness. They should still be here. Colonel White looked around. The empty chambers. Well, they're not. Where did they go? The engineer called from the control panel. Stasis pods show emergency release activated approximately 28,000 years ago, shortly after our departure. Alan felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying some of your people have been on Earth all this time? Unknown, the navigator replied. If survived, would have integrated, hidden. Hidden how? Captain Garcia demanded. 7-foot blue aliens would be pretty noticeable throughout human history. The three Zalrani exchanged looks again. The archivist finally spoke. Our species adaptable, can modify appearance over generations, especially with genetic contribution from native species. A stunned silence fell over the humans as they processed the implication. Are you suggesting, Dr. Daniels said slowly, that Zalrani interbred with early humans? Limited cases, possible. The navigator seemed uncomfortable. Would explain accelerated development of your species, and perhaps why ship responds to human presence now. Before anyone could respond to this bombshell revelation, the light column suddenly flared again. The ship's voice spoke, this time in clear English. Hunters approaching. Estimated arrival 14 Earth days. Defense systems critically damaged, unable to protect. Require assistance. The navigator turned to Captain Garcia, its large eyes solemn. Now you understand danger. Ship calling for help but cannot defend. We must work together, or your world faces extinction. For the next week, the research facility transformed into a global command center. Leaders from around the world joined emergency video conferences as the Zalrani and human scientists worked frantically to prepare Earth's defenses. The ancient ship had become the center of humanity's last hope. Alan worked alongside the navigator, analyzing the historical records stored in the ship's database. Each day revealed new connections between Zalrani influence and human development. Cave paintings, once thought to show mystical figures, were actually depictions of the aliens. Early tools previously credited to human innovation had actually been taught by the visitors. The truth of human history was being rewritten hour by hour. I still don't understand why these hunters want to destroy emerging intelligence, Alan said as they examined a star map showing the path of the approaching threat. What do they gain from it? The navigator's skin shifted to a deeper blue as it considered the question. They believe intelligence brings chaos to galaxy. They see themselves as gardeners, removing weeds before they spread. And now we're the weeds, Melissa commented from where she was helping Dr. Daniels translate more of the ship's records. Yes, the navigator agreed. But weeds that have grown strong roots. Hunters did not expect this level of advancement. In another section of the ship, the engineer worked with Dr. Russell and a team of scientists to restore the vessel's defensive systems. Progress was slow, as human technology was decades behind what was needed to repair the alien systems. Without full repair, shields will only function at 20% capacity, the engineer explained, its long fingers moving across control surfaces that responded to its touch. Not enough to stop hunter weapons. Colonel White, who had been monitoring the work, shook his head. Then we need to bring our own weapons into play. Every major military on Earth is standing by. The engineer made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your weapon's primitive, like throwing stones at hurricane. Captain Garcia entered the room, looking tired but determined. We may have another option. The Zalrani fleet has offered to position their 7 ships as a defense line. 7 ships not enough, the engineer said. Hunters will have many more. What about the signal? Alan asked. Can't we just shut it down? Make Earth invisible again? The navigator joined them, followed by the archivist. Too late, they have acknowledged receipt. They know Earth location now. A tense silence fell over the group. 14 days had been reduced to 7, and they were no closer to a viable defense strategy. It was Dr. Daniels who broke the silence. I think I found something important. He held up his tablet, showing strange symbols he had copied from a hidden section of the history wall. These records mention a final defense built into the ship, something even the hunters feared. The 3 Zalrani looked at each other, their skin changing to a pale shade that Alan had come to recognize as concern. Speak of what you found, the navigator said carefully. Dr. Daniels pointed to the symbols. It describes a system that creates a field affecting advanced technology. It can disable it completely within a large radius. A weapon that targets technology itself, Captain Garcia said, understanding dawning on her face, that would neutralize their ships. Yes, the archivist confirmed reluctantly, but also affects all technology in range, including human technology, and Zalrani ships. So we'd be defenseless too, Colonel White said. Not defenseless, the engineer corrected. Just returned to pre-industrial state temporarily. Alan thought about the implications. How temporary? For humans, perhaps 1 generation to rebuild, the navigator estimated. The field breaks down complex systems to basic components, would need to reconstruct technological base. 1 generation without modern technology, Frank Miller said, having joined the conversation. Versus extinction at the hands of these hunters. I think the choice is clear. Over the next few days, world leaders debated the plan while preparations continued. The Zalrani ships positioned themselves in orbit, ready to engage the hunters and buy time for the ancient ship's defense system to be activated. On the morning of the 7th day, deep space monitoring stations detected the hunter fleet entering the solar system. They moved faster than anything humans had ever observed, crossing the distance from Pluto to Mars in hours rather than months. Inside the ancient ship, Alan stood with Melissa, Dr. Daniels, and Captain Garcia as the navigator prepared to activate the defense system. Once started, cannot stop process, the navigator warned. Field will expand to cover planet. All advanced technology will stop functioning, including your ships? Alan asked. Yes. Our ships will fall. Crews have accepted this sacrifice. Captain Garcia nodded solemnly. Earth will remember what you've done for us, both 30,000 years ago and today. The first impacts shook the planet as hunter weapons targeted major cities. The Zalrani ships engaged the enemy, but were quickly overwhelmed by superior numbers. On screens throughout the facility, they watched as the golden vessels fought and fell one by one. Now, the navigator said, placing its 6-fingered hand on the light column at the center of the control room. The ship hummed to life, power surging through systems that had lain dormant for millennia. The walls glowed brightly, the shifting symbols moving faster and faster until they blurred together. The ship needs more power, the engineer called out. Systems too degraded from time. The navigator looked at the humans. Ship responds to those with Zalrani genetics. Even distant, diluted through generations. If humans carry our legacy, They can help power defense. Without hesitation, Alan stepped forward and placed his hand beside the navigators on the light column. Melissa joined him, then Dr. Daniels. One by one, the humans in the room added their touch to the column. The ship's voice spoke, no longer in broken English but in a perfect blend of human and Zalrani languages. Genetic signatures recognized. Combined species effort acknowledged. Deploying final defense. A pulse of energy erupted from the ship, expanding outward in a visible wave that spread across the landscape. As it passed through the facility, lights flickered and died. Computers shut down. All technology more complex than simple mechanics ceased to function. The wave continued outward, covering the planet in minutes. In orbit, the hunter ships faltered and fell, their advanced systems rendered useless by the field. Those that tried to escape found themselves trapped as the field extended far into space. On the surface, humanity faced a new world. Cities went dark. Transportation stopped. Modern life as they knew it paused. But they were alive. They had survived. Inc. The dim light of the now powerless alien ship, the navigator turned to Alan. Now rebuilding begins, for both our peoples. Together? Alan asked. Yes, the navigator replied. Long ago we helped shape your beginning. Now perhaps human creativity can help shape our future. Outside, the sun rose on a world changed but undefeated. Humanity had lost its technology but gained something more valuable, knowledge of their true origins and their place in a much larger universe. And when they rebuilt, they would not be alone.